I want to officially welcome you to our AJA Lunchtime Live. Welcome to all you sweet folks who are here with us live in our Zoom gathering, and welcome to those of you who are watching the replay. We love to have you here too. Our topic today is careers in animal advocacy with Lauren Mee from the organization Animal Advocacy Careers. So whether you're curious about getting a job in animal advocacy yourself, or you know someone talented you love to see move over to career in the movement, you're in the right place today, folks. I want to take a moment to introduce our guest today, Lauren Mee, who is the co-founder and CEO of Animal Advocacy Careers. Prior to AAC, she worked as a consultant, helping businesses with market entry into new countries, market consolidation, and highlighting marketing opportunities. She also volunteered for the Good Food Institute and the Humane League. In 2019, Lauren transitioned full-time into working in a career with purpose and now has the pleasure of advising other people on how they can do this as well. In her spare time, she also mentors people at Magnify Mentoring. She's a strategic advisor to Talist and the AVA Summit and is on the board of Consulting for Good and the Mission Motor. And I have to share this because it's so cute. She's the proud doggy parent to Tofu, their vegan rescue dog from Romania. Hi, Lauren. So good to see you and have you here.
Thanks, Kimberly. I'm overwhelmed with this community. It's really beautiful. I don't think I've been on such a podcast ever before.
Oh,
Thank you everyone for making the
amazing.
time to join. It means a lot to me as well. I really like to see the people sometimes that we talk to and help.
I love it. Well, and you know, this is we haven't actually covered this before. I mean, we've vaguely talked about, we talk all the time about ways that you can use your own sort of unique experience and background and personality to bring to the movement. But generally, we talk in terms of a lot of volunteering. So, and I know, especially in this community, we've trained these people really well. AJAers tend to be really skilled and have a lot of knowledge, and it's a really natural fit that the next step might be to look at, well, could this actually be my career? So Lauren, I want to start first of all. A lot of folks don't know that there's this great resource known as Animal Advocacy Careers in the movement. And so can you give us a little overview of the organization to start off with?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we're actually only 4 years old. So if you don't know about us, that's also fine because we're only 4 years old. But yeah, our main focus is really to strengthen the animal advocacy movement by attracting and directing more people towards roles that help animals most. So part of it is also just increasing awareness of the viability of animal advocacy careers, careers in animal advocacy, because a lot of people think that it is only volunteering. And it is, like, volunteering is a core part of our movement, and that will never change. But it is also possible to, have a career in this space as well, and get paid for it, and for it to be your full-time role. So part of it is actually just increasing the visibility on that. And then also, really, we're just trying to help people get jobs. So if you're trying to get jobs, that's what we're trying to do too. And that's how we measure our impact. And that's really our mission, is to help people find meaningful, fulfilling jobs. So we're quite aligned on that, and we're here to help anyone that really wants to take that journey.
Yeah, and just to be clear, you're a nonprofit. Like, you're not, you're not for profit. You're not looking, for clients. You are a nonprofit organization that your funders have decided this is an incredibly important piece in the movement, and here we are.
Yeah, I feel really grateful, actually, that people, and I also feel, I sometimes really, I'm like, oh wow, this is my job. My job is literally to help other people get careers. Honestly, it's really lovely. And sometimes I think, like, oh wow, this is a bit of a dream. And yeah, we are backed with philanthropic donations mostly, and yeah, we really are here to just help other people find the same thing as kind of I have. So yeah, I also really understand it. I've done the job searching myself, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a bit later. But yeah, I really do get it. I understand what people are going through. I know it's tough to be looking for a career in animal advocacy, and really we want to try and just help people make that transition if they feel like that's the right thing for them.
Well, I have to kind of just shake my head even on, having this discussion, because 15, well, I guess I started as an activist in this movement about 17 years ago. And at that point, the idea of being able to have animal advocacy as a career, like impossible. There was maybe like 2 people in Canada who were paid to do this. And it's not like we're all like money grubbing. Oh, we want to do this to, but what I think a lot of activists want is they want to be able to do it full time. They
Yes.
want to be able to put all of their, time and energy into what is most meaningful to them. So I think it's really important for us to really acknowledge the volunteers, people, who have been volunteering in this movement, which is me. Most of my 17 years, I have done things volunteer pro bono. I do a little bit, of work paid, but I have my own career, outside of this. So I think it's important to acknowledge that volunteering is a backbone of our movement. But as we get bigger, like any sort of movement, we need to professionalize, and we need to have people who are full steam ahead 24/7 on this. So Lauren, tell me a little bit. I mean, AAC was formed because we need really skilled people in this movement. So I've heard you say before that there is a critical shortage of skilled professionals in our movement. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course I can. And just as a caveat, just because we're saying that doesn't mean that the people who are in the movement aren't skilled, because that would
Yes,
also be
yes.
insulting myself. I think it really means that. So we went through an incubator. AAC went into an incubator, and the people that were incubating this charity had done some research where they'd interviewed a lot of experts, a lot of funders in the space, and they just wanted to know, like, if we were to start an organization that was to strengthen the animal advocacy movement, what would that organization need to do? And these experts and a lot of funders and other executive directors just said, we have a real problem here with specific skills, like getting those skills into the movement. And I think part of this is actually just because we're a really new movement. So also there's just like not a lot of people who've had the chance or opportunity to have a paid role to develop these skills. And of course, then we have what we call a bottleneck, and that kind of means that there isn't enough people in the movement with those specific skill sets. And it means that then organizations can't expand. Maybe they can't expand into new countries. Maybe it means that all of their staff have like put so much pressure on them to do multiple different roles. And it's kind of a good sign. It means that our movement is better funded because now we're able to pay people. And I think actually since AAC has started, that it's kind of pivoted back again, where funding is maybe the biggest bottleneck in the movement and talent is right up there alongside. But we're always going to have these two bottlenecks, right? So it's always going to be this kind of tension between, oh, we've got more funding, great, so now we can hire more people, but we need the right kind of people and we need the right kind of skills. And then, oh, okay, now we need funding again. So it's like this swing that's constantly going. And we're just trying to help in any way we can by building up that talent pipeline of specific skill sets.
And so would you say the animal advocacy movement is falling behind in talent attraction, like compared to other movements or other nonprofit sort of movements?
So I think so, yes. And not even just in nonprofits, but in for-profits. People spend literally thousands of pounds on recruitment, on like kind of like recruitment branding, on job advertisements, on headhunters. And the animal advocacy movement spent like almost nothing, and then is like, oh, we have a shortage of skilled people. I wonder why that is. So I think that really it also makes sense because organizations are really small and we are funding constraints. So people can't really afford to do all of those things. And I think that's why AAC is so valuable, because we can do that for multiple organizations. And also, if somebody isn't a good fit for one organization, we can be like, well, maybe they're actually a good fit for another organization. So actually what we do is really is helpful to multiple different organizations, because, it's more about just attracting in people who are mission aligned and either have the skills or want to develop those skills. And then we just, match them to the organization that maybe they have the right fit for. And that isn't necessarily just on skills, it's also on like attitudes and whether, they have the same, like the cultural alignment is also a really key part in this whole recruitment process as well, and is sometimes undervalued as well. So sometimes it's not necessarily that the person doesn't have the skills, but maybe they're just not the right fit for that organization, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it does seem like it's especially important for people to be culturally and ethically aligned to animal rights, and as opposed to maybe some other social justice issues that are just more accepted in mainstream. We have an issue that is still only represented and fought for by a very small piece of the population. So is that what makes it even more important that that we're in animal advocacy careers? We're not necessarily. It's very important for us to recruit people who are on that sort of mission wavelength.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly correct. I think it maybe sometimes it goes a little too far. Like I know certain organizations are like, we'll only hire vegans,
Mhm.
which I understand. But I think there is a slight difference between someone who genuinely cares really about animals. They don't need to be vegan. They just need to get that. And they need to be like, this is, I understand. If you don't have people that aren't vegans, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have the right cultural fit. But it kind of doesn't go, also there are vegans that aren't the right cultural fit. So I think like vegan is a good proxy, but I think far too many organizations use it as like the be all and end all of whether a person is mission aligned. And I think that you can be mission aligned and not vegan, but it is obviously a good indicator for people caring about the same thing as you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's obviously, I mean, I've been involved in places that have hired non-vegans who become vegan very quickly once they start doing this work.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of, people, as we know in the general population, there's a lot of people who haven't been exposed in the right way to these issues. I'd say compassion is probably, one of those fundamental things one has to have. And if they have that, then there's a really good chance they're going to get the animal issues and change accordingly.
Yeah.
Um, and just to be clear, Lauren, when you talk about animal advocacy careers, are you also including like alternative protein startups or vegan, like more vegan oriented organizations, or do you sort of stick to the charities
This
and
is such a
nonprofits?
great question. Yeah, so I think when we first started, also I have a team of like 4 people. So we're
Yeah.
doing a lot of things. And because we have such a small team, we have to really focus. So our priority and main focus right now is on the non-profit space because I think it is like the least likely to attract somebody because the wages are slightly lower and we really have a huge amount of things that we want a small number of people to do. So we really thought that maybe we would have the most impact if we were able to shine a light on the non-profit space because I mean the for-profit space does have like some at least like better salaries and other things. So we're like, okay, let's really try and go hard for that. But of course we do when we get people in, not everyone is the right fit for a nonprofit. Like that's just
Mhm.
the case. And they might have transferable skills to the for-profit space or even slightly outside of that. So they could be good for a policy role. They could be good for finance, like earning to give. They could be good for a legal career or something like that. So when we do get people, we do try and direct them to those other opportunities. It's more about the person finding like their right career. But I think that in terms of like the things that we understand the most about the bottlenecks is probably the nonprofits because we have most experience with working and helping them in recruitment. And then if people wanted to go for a career in alternative protein, I think I would just point them towards alternative protein careers or Talis, which I think really focus on those a lot better. And I think that they could, just be better at giving people advice on those areas.
Amazing. Yeah. So there are actual like sites for alternative proteins organizations. So it's
Isn't it
really
amazing? We've got
yeah,
so many
it's
opportunities for us. It
again,
really is more about prioritizing those opportunities than like there
yeah.
not being enough. So it's great to see the space expanding in this way.
Again, it's just like I would have never guessed, that we would be in this place. So anytime that I start feeling like discouraged about how slow things change and everything, I really have to think about the night and day between about the organizations, the amount of people that are working in the movement. It's an unbelievable thing. So we have a lot of people here interested in a career in animal advocacy. And so when we say we're really sort of missing, skilled professionals in our movement, I guess skilled is the key word here. Tell us sort of, what does skilled mean, and why are we missing that piece?
Yeah.
And you already mentioned, because we haven't had a lot of this work, so people haven't been able to necessarily get trained in it. But are there other factors at play?
Yeah, I think so. It's sometimes a bit horrible to be AAC because on one side we have the organizations going, Lauren, we need more people. And on the other side, we have people going, I really want those organizations. And you're like, why can't they just go like this? And, just match. And I guess it's just slightly more complicated than that. And I think that the three main skill bottlenecks that we identified through researching and surveying like multiple different organizations were fundraising, management and leadership, and policy. And I think at least
Let's
two of those.
let's slow that down. Fundraising,
Yes,
leadership,
fundraising, policy, and which also kind of goes on to like lobbying and legal, and then management and leadership.
Okay, got it. So those are the places where we're really needing, skilled people, and we need to really sort of do some headhunting within our community around that.
Exactly. And I think at least part of that is for policy roles, a lot of people who are hiring for those policy roles want people who have experience in politics, basically. So they've been working for the government or something like that. And I think because we're such a new movement, I think people didn't even really think that, like, hey, if I want to help animals, I'm just going to go and work for an MP or in the government and then come back and help animals. So I think we haven't had enough time to build up that talent pipeline in policy, and we really need to start doing that. In fundraising, it's because we have a really high turnover. So for fundraising roles, because of the burden of fundraising, a lot of people just they enter the movement and then they leave again. And then we want people that have experience in fundraising, but a lot of those people have left the movement. So I think it's also about like building up resilience and having more support around fundraising so that the talented people that we have can stay. And then in management and leadership, again, there's a really high turnover in those roles. But I think also it's because a lot of people have kind of come up through the movement but haven't had the management training as well. So sometimes that's the piece that we need to give more support and training to people so that they are able to take on those responsibilities and roles. Or for people to go outside and again get that experience and come back into the movement. But I think it's not one of those things that just happens overnight, like, oh, the bottlenecks are fixed now. And I think a lot of the work that we try and do is really just cultivating a pipeline of talent for the future. And that starts with like most people who are here and listening, right? We hope that all of these people can contribute to the animal advocacy movement, whether it's now or in a few years' time or something like that.
So what we're really needing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we're needing people who have gotten very skilled in other arenas to bring that over to animal advocacy. So so if there's people out there that are in corporate jobs or, have worked in government or, and they've just never thought about, oh, could I work in animal advocacy? Like, do I need to go to an animal advocacy university? So that doesn't necessarily occur to a lot of people, I assume.
Yes, I think that's absolutely correct. And it's like, so that's a lot of what we do at AAC is like bringing new people in, but I think also people who want to get a career. I think also you don't just become a fundraiser or, I think you have to think, actually, I'd like to do that. And because that's what I want to do, I'm going to like spend some time like cultivating that skill so that, then I can actually be that thing. So I think a lot of people just think they either have the skills or they're not, but a lot of it is just building up that skill set and deciding that actually would be a really good match for me. And we do have some skills profiles on our website. And I think that that is helpful for them to just read through and see, like, do I seem to match with this skill set? Is that a good fit for me? And if it is, I would really encourage people to, once they really think that is one of their best options, to try and build that skill set up so that they can be part of the solution to our skills bottleneck.
Yeah, I mean, we've had conversations with, at Animal Justice with people coming in and saying, we'd really like, because we have a lot of lawyers that work for us, and we're like, go and work somewhere else for 5 years, really get specialized in this particular piece of law and then bring that back to us, so yeah, it's a really important piece. Lauren, the trajectory we're talking about was kind of what you followed. So can you tell us a little bit about your own story of how you got into an animal advocacy career?
Yeah, so I think I became vegan in 2016, which is actually quite a long way off now and is showing my age. So that's fine. So I 2016 I became vegan, and I really just started with activism. Like I was like, I just want to help animals. I don't think that just being vegan is enough. I really want to do more for animals. But I honestly, I was the living embodiment of this. I didn't think that I could have a career in animal advocacy. I just thought, yeah, this is something that I will just do once I finish my job. And I think I thought that for quite a long time. And then I actually got career advice from someone else and said, "Hey, Lauren, I think that actually you could help animals with the skill set that you have." And so I started volunteering at that point for the Good Food Institute and the Humane League. And basically, I was using some of the information that I had from my consulting and creating things for for nonprofits. So like using some of that information, like helping them with their strategy. And I remember just thinking, wow, like I loved my job, but that was so much better. I was like, this just feels great. Like I really like doing this. So I think then I really knew that this is what the path that I wanted to go on. And but I was looking for a job for like 2 or 3 years. I think I had like quite a broad idea. I didn't know really what I was going to do. I thought maybe I could do research or maybe be a campaigner. And then again, someone said, "Hey, why don't you apply to this incubator program?" And I thought, I kind of like my job and this seems a bit crazy. I'm not really sure about that. But I did apply for it. And I thought if I got through to the final stages and they thought that I was a good fit for this role, that maybe it's worth a shot because I could do something that like has a huge impact for animals. And but I must also caveat that I did check with my actual boss at the time and say, like, if this goes wrong, can I have my job back? and they were like, "Yes, Lauren, you can have it." So I did have a good backup
Wow,
plan
that's
should
great.
this crazy experiment not work out. But it did work out, and but it did take me like 2 or 3 years to get to that point. And yeah, I didn't really have AAC as a resource at that point, and I wish I did. So hopefully it can help other people to move a bit faster or in a direction that I couldn't move by myself.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that. If someone here is in a similar boat, how can animal advocacy careers help? Tell us about some of the programs and resources you offer.
Yeah, so I mean, you can check the job board out. The job board is really good for finding those opportunities. We also have those profiles that I mentioned. So I think I would really recommend for people to like look through those profiles to see what kind of like it talks about what type of person is a good fit for this. So I think that's also good. We also have an online course which is it's different to your course. It's really specific about like I think quite often people don't come up with enough options, so they think, okay, I should go into a career in marketing. And they don't think about the other 5 options that might be available to them. So our online course is really trying to talk about the breadth of opportunities that are in the animal advocacy movement. And then once you've got that long list, you can make it shorter as you try out these different things. And then we also have a partnership with vegan hacktivists, and they do a lot of skilled volunteering. And yeah, so people can also get volunteering opportunities through vegan hacktivists. And then, by the end of this, hopefully you have like a clearer idea of what kind of opportunities you want to go to. But if you don't, we also offer career advising one-to-one, where I just sit with the person and we chat about their skills and the needs of the animal advocacy movement, and we try and think about like where their best fit would be. And then hopefully you get a job. But if
Yeah.
that's not the case, there are other ways that you can contribute that are still really great, and we can discuss that in our career advising sessions.
Yeah, amazing. So there's actually an opportunity for one-on-one career counseling. That's pretty valuable. Very cool. And so can we give folks a few nuggets here about just some things that they can keep in mind and chew on a little bit? Like, can we talk about some of the different career options in the movement and what people should keep in mind when considering them? Like, is there like, how do people figure out if this is a fit before they sort of throw everything into the game and trying to apply and getting a job?
Yeah, can I answer the last part first? So
Please, let's do it.
I think this is like the the advice that people are least going to like to hear, which is before you jump, research first. So I think like before you jump into these things, it might be worth reading the skills profile, talking to people in our movement who are already doing this job, and really figuring out like whether that's a good role for you or not. And then afterwards they can kind of take that next step of like applying or doing some like skills volunteering or something like that. And in terms of the types of roles that are available, there like I honestly believe that there's something for everybody. I really believe that. It's just finding what that thing is. And I think that there is a slight tension between the roles that come up the most and the roles that are the bottleneck skills. So I think the roles that actually come up the most are campaigns, corporate engagement, volunteer management. And then I think underneath that, it's also a lot of research roles. So I think those are the ones that kind of you'll probably see the most. But then I think the kind of the roles which, you know, are the bottlenecks are the ones we kind of also discussed. There's also roles in legal, there are roles in tech, there are roles in IT. There, you know, there's obviously the campaign. No, I already mentioned campaigns, so that's not it. And then also it's not just the nonprofit space. As I said, there's roles in government where you can like try and get policy changes pushed through for animals. There are roles where you could just like try and earn a lot of money and donate some of that back to them. There's roles in law, and I would love to give you like an answer of who's a good fit for each one of those, but I think I would be here for the whole session just talking
Yes.
about that specific thing.
Of course, but it's really important because, you know, Deva was saying that it looks like you have to have a background in either tech, law, politics, medicine, fundraising, marketing, business, and I don't have a background in any of those. So you know, just for somebody like Deva, what do you do? What are your talents? What are your skills? What's your background? Where is there anywhere that you could train?
Exactly.
So yeah, you're saying it's pretty wide open.
It's not just like where you are now, but it's where could you become, and like and thinking that way as well, which I think is really hard to do sometimes. It's not immediately obvious, but I think it's at least worth looking into. If you don't have those skills right now, can you gain that skills and experience in the next few years or so?
Also, folks, I just want to make it clear that I will throw some questions Lauren's way. I see a couple of questions there I've taken note of. But if you do have an actual question, just make sure you put star Q, just to differentiate it from the rest of the chat. Yeah, so lots of different ideas, and I think that's something people really just, you know, a lot of people who are especially newer to the movement just think, well, they're going to pay me to hold a sign, and I think it's really important to remember that there's so many aspects to animal advocacy. It's, you know, being an accountant, it's doing marketing, it is you know, taking care of people. I mean, that's my job. I'm a coach for change makers. That's my bread and vegan butter. I take care of you know, activists, not just in the animal advocacy movement, but in social justice in general. And so that has allowed me to bring my best skills. And I also work part-time for animal justice. So I never wanted well, I mean, I never planned on having a career in animal advocacy because I already had one. But the fact is that I was able, you know, I just like sort of grew into all these different opportunities, these job opportunities, because I was in there and working on things and people could see how I worked. And so I think that's a big piece of maybe the advice you talk about, sort of a career, what do you call it? A career advocacy plan. Did I get that right?
Yeah, we have a career. It's a career plan, and
career plan. Yes.
yeah. But I think what you're saying there is so important. I think people often don't think enough about the fact that like what actually makes just our job fulfilling, and part of that is just being good at the job. So like something that you're actually good at and something that you enjoy. And if you don't necessarily know what those things are, it's so worth investing some time in figuring out what those things are, because that will like that will be the core of what helps you to be good at your job in future, and what one that you want to stay at. And it sounds, Kimberly, like you've created your own, so you're just like, oh, these are things that I'm good at, and
I've created almost every job that I have. Yeah, exactly. Whoops, are you still there, Lauren?
Yes, I'm there.
Oh, I
Sorry.
just missed. Sorry. And so, can you give us a little bit of an idea? For those who are really serious about pursuing a career in animal advocacy, what would be the first step? Is it that career plan? Is it research? Is it take us through a couple of the steps of if somebody is here and they're like, okay, no, I actually I might have skills that could be used. I could be doing this advocacy as my job.
Yeah.
What would be the first steps you'd tell them to do?
Yeah, so I love the career plan. I think it takes out a lot of I think often sometimes we'll kind of jump into things sometimes that can never not be the right thing for us. And I think sometimes we also not really 100% make decisions that we've thought enough about. So what I really like about the career plan is that there's like a few steps to it. The first one is just like making a really long list, like a huge list of like all the possible jobs that you think you could potentially maybe be good at some point in your career. And
Mm.
almost no one has done this whenever I talk to them. Like they've like, oh, I have this list of like 3 people. So I want you to start like really wide, huge amount of like possible roles that you can think of. And then think about like what is the criteria that is really important to you in this next role or job or in your career. And that can be something like being helping a lot of animals. It could be something like I need to earn at least X amount of money. I need to have work-life balance. The criteria is really specific to the individual, so I can't do it for you. But if you would like some thoughts on different criteria, I'm more than happy to give that to those people. And then also we suggest looking at the bottlenecks of the animal advocacy movement, because if you are one of those people, then we really want you to consider that as being your like top priority role. And then from that long list and that criteria and the bottlenecks, you can shortlist that down to like maybe 3 or 5 different types of roles. And then we want you to like just go out and do some research, talk to people, maybe do some volunteering in that specific area, think about any skills that you need to develop to get to that point. And that will just like give you a really good overview of what you need to do next. And also, if it's the case that you get 2 job offers, you can see like which one was the highest. So was it your role in research, or was it like a different role? And you can then decide on those opportunities. It will give you like quite a good robust mechanism for knowing how to make the choice between 2 career paths that you could go on.
Hmm. And yeah, and so it's so important to understand like where you need to expand the skills. And for the most part, Lauren, just as we were talking, as I was talking about it, do you find that really targeted sort of volunteering and networking is an important piece of that? Is as much as maybe going and taking courses or getting another certification, do you think that's a pretty important piece?
That is, I think, almost essential for our movement and the way that it works. I'm not saying that it's the ideal way that I would like the movement to work, but I think that it's the way that our movement does work. And one of the reasons is that, as I was saying, when organizations go through their recruitment process, they're not just looking for your skills. They will have specific criteria, which is trying to assess your value alignment. And part of that will be like, what is your track record? So have you volunteered? Are you vegan? But sometimes that will be it. They will have this kind of criteria that they're looking for, and they need you to prove your mission alignment. So that can be through volunteering. It can also just be learning to talk about it in a really concise way. So I have experience of doing the things that you're looking for in this scenario, and I think not enough people are good at doing that. And that can also sometimes be why skilled people don't get jobs, because they're not answering the questions that the organizations want to know, which is how are your skills going to help me with this specific role. And I think that's sometimes a thing that people aren't necessarily good at. So you're just developing all these kind of points that you have for your CV that you can then present to an organization and say like, this is why I am the perfect person for you.
Mm. And I love that even as a volunteer, it's as most of you know, we're so hamstrung, in this movement again because of lack of funding. I'm again very grateful for all the funding, the increase in funding over the years, but still compared to our opponents, tiny little bit of funding. And so you have to make it as easy for groups as possible. And so even as a volunteer, I always say, look at that, or look at the organization that you're interested in working with, and figure out what you can bring them that maybe they don't have or they need more of. And then you pitch them on that in particular. I love when people email me and they say, I'd like to volunteer for you. And these are the skills that I think, would be applicable. And I could see myself doing a project around this. I love that, because otherwise it's a lot of work for me to figure out, okay, where does this person fit in? So Lauren, do you find that kind of helps some people get in the door a little bit more?
Absolutely. And I think also not all roles are on our job board like already. Some organizations are thinking of hiring someone in
Absolutely.
2 or 3 months. So if you're talking to the person, if you're like, hey, like, and you approach them and then they're like, oh, actually I have a role coming up in 2 or 3 months. And that can be really helpful, so I think that's also a key part. And that I think volunteering is just so important because it also helps you to gain experience in specific things like campaigning. I don't think that you can have experience of campaigning if it's not like through our movement. So if you don't have the job in it, I think you need to volunteer or get some experience that way. So there are also certain roles that really kind of dictate that you need to volunteer, because how else would you get the experience that is required or that they want for you to kind of to get that role in future.
And also, a lot of our teams are a little bit more on the smaller side, and so it's a big deal to hire somebody, and it's not fun hiring somebody that you haven't worked with before. Like, it's a big risk, right? So if there's any way that you can be working on something in some little realm of an organization you're interested in working on, it's a huge advantage. So somebody was just asking here, it was Eleanor that said, do you recommend adding the Animal Justice Academy course to your resume when applying for these roles? So for example, courses that you've taken, would that go on your resume, Lauren?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think people also put our online course on there, and organizations have said it's a really useful indicator. If people have spent the time doing your online course, that they're probably gonna, because it's they're long, aren't they, Kimberly? And then they know also that they understand the movement, because that's essentially what our courses do. They try and educate people on it. So they know that they really have the inclination to do more, and they understand it a little bit better than maybe someone who hasn't done the course.
Yeah, it's like when you're hiring, we have to very much be open to people that have never worked in the movement before, that have worked in, again, a for-profit arena or whatever. But it's really important for us to know that there's an interest, that you can demonstrate an interest. If it is not with volunteering, it should be with courses, it should be in some sort of community. So yeah, I love that, Lauren. I'm going to ask another question here from the crowd. Dan is asking, what about retired people who have a ton of experience that could be transferable to animal advocacy? So how many are you seeing, like, quite a few retired people sort of coming in and thinking, oh, is there a way that we can, that I can maybe work part-time or do some contract work or anything? Are you seeing any of that, Lauren?
Yeah, so I also, this is not something that we've mentioned yet, so thank you for the excellent question. I think a lot of these people could be board of directors. So we also have a shortage of board of directors. So that's in a nonprofit space, you have you have the executive director or the CEO, and then you have a board of directors who sits above the executive director and make sure that we're doing our job right. And I think that the board of directors role tends to be for people who have like a lot of experience and they have skills, and it's usually you want a board of directors who have everything essentially in your board of directors. So there's usually a place for everyone in the board of directors role, and that could be something that is really worth considering, because it does take time to be on the board of directors, but also like they would probably really benefit from people who've like had a whole career before and now just wanting to contribute back.
And it's such an important role. It really is. It can be a very important role. So I think that's so good for you to bring up. One of the pieces that I think it's also important to bring up Lauren, is, you know, some people will be here and they'll be like, well, you know what? I have a really good paying career and I'm really good at it and I'm excelling at it. And they're like, but maybe I'm, you know, should be doing something with purpose. Well, Lauren, making money and donating it to the animal advocacy movement, that is incredibly powerful, right?
Absolutely. As I said, I think that the two top bottlenecks, and we also appreciate that not everyone wants to change their career. That's fine. We're not saying that you need to, and I think that actually donating a certain percentage. Actually, we have a program called the Effective Giving Program, and we ask people to pledge a certain percentage of their income, because you know that's like a a commitment that they can have, and that props up our entire movement. I think, if you get a handful of people that are going to pledge a percentage of their income to animals, that literally funds an entire organization existing. And, that is just as valuable as somebody working in the movement. I think actually it's just slightly like more, certain people really want to directly, like they want to be working in the movement, and certain people like need to be surrounded by people who share their values. And in that case, I think that like maybe a much better fit for the nonprofit world. But some people are like, I just want to help animals and I don't care how I do it, and I'm okay with just carrying on with my job and I really like it. And in that case, then I think that you can do equally amount of good by donating a certain percentage of your income, or just donations, because we also, just like volunteers, we live off this. This is how our movement carries on. So it's super important.
I also tell people that if you have a job, maybe not the best paying job, but it's a job that has limited hours, it's like 9 to 5, you don't have to take your work home with you, you're valuable too, because you can do a pretty significant side hustle with volunteering in animal advocacy. So, never underestimate the power of having a contained job, because that can keep you afloat. But you can still do, like I said, incredible things on the side.
Yeah, we need everyone, don't we? Basically,
Yeah,
the animal advocacy movement needs everything, so everyone like can contribute. It's just like, again, finding that thing that you want to do, or maybe doing multiple. That would also be really great.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got quite a few folks here today from Canada, where animal justice is based, and our movement is a lot smaller. As any advice for them? I mean, there's not nearly the positions there are, say, in the United States. So any words of wisdom there?
Yes. Also, there was Animal Charity Evaluators recently did a report on the number of organizations based on the geography, and you would be surprised to know that Canada is quite high up there. So it goes
Okay,
something like the
amazing.
US, the UK, Germany, and then I think Canada is like the fourth. So just for
Wow,
context, there's actually a lot of organizations that are in Canada, so it could be worse. And
amazing.
I think that for people that think that the opportunities that exist don't exist for them, you can start something new. I did. I think you can start something new if you want to. You can go into the adjacent sectors. So again, you can do policy. You can do there's a lot of things, and not just to that tiny amount of roles. I think that you can be an advocate, you can volunteer, you can do there's so many things that people can actually do. I don't think we're like tied down to the number of roles, but I really also advocate for people who think that they could take a risk, to think about starting something new, because we also need more organizations, I think.
And I love that you've reminded us that when we're thinking about careers that help animals, we're not just focusing on directly the animal advocacy movement, but also, like you said, when we have an animal advocate in a position in the political realm, like in assisting, like you said, a parliamentary member, it's all the difference in the world. We've gotten bills put through because certain MP or senator has an assistant that is friendly to our cause,
That's
right? So
absolutely true. Actually,
yeah.
as a example of this, somebody that we gave career advice to 2 years ago is now working for an MP in Germany, And the animal welfare bill has just been pushed through because of, like, in part due to this person, because it's something that's been on the back burner for governments for, like, they always put it in, we're going to update the animal welfare bill, and it always gets deprioritized. And I think we completely underestimate the significance of having one advocate, just one, doesn't have to be loads, one advocate in a position of power that is just like reminding people and mobilizing people in the right direction. And that also extends to law. It extends to people being on, like, a judge, like all those types of things where it's just, you need one person in your corner, and then we'll get all these things for animals. So I think we need more of these people.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Like if you have one vegan in an environmental organization, you can bet that environmental organization is going to be plant-based forward, right?
Yes.
So yeah, it's really, never underestimate the power of you being in an adjacent sector, folks. And just so you know, in the Animal Justice Academy course, week 2 is all about the different aspects of how you can bring animal advocacy to your corner of your work, your communities, your school, whatever it is. So check that out if you haven't already. Also, just on this idea of opportunity, with many jobs being remote, Lauren, these days, I guess that opens up a lot of possibilities for folks, no matter where they are in the world. Or can you explain how it works? Do most jobs require you to be a citizen of the country of the where the organization is based out of? Because I see some things on your job board that say anywhere in the world, and some that are like US only or Canada only.
Yeah, so I think a lot of them do, but it is something that we as Animal Advocacy Careers also try and advise organizations on how they can get the best talent they can. And one thing that we do as an organization is we hire anyone wherever they are. We just want to hire them because they're that person. And we are trying to show and demonstrate to other organizations that actually, if you do that, you can really open up the amount of roles. So I think that as a movement, we are cottoning onto this. I think we're realizing that it's particularly US organizations. They're always like, oh, but the US is so big, so I'm sure we'll find someone there. And they do usually, like, they want the person to be a citizen. But do you know what? I think it's also worthwhile people applying for roles, or just emailing the person and being like, this is my CV. It says here that you need to be this person. Do you sponsor visas? Because sometimes that might work. They might be like, actually, like, we don't normally, but this person seems amazing and I really want to hire them. So I think it's worth at least, like, not accepting blanket that people say that I'm not going to hire it. And also, I really hope that organizations get a bit better about this. And it's not that expensive to do like an employer of record and hire somebody in like a different country either. So I think it's something that hopefully our movement will change and become a little bit better about opening the doors for remote roles. But in answer to your question, usually remote roles are also, that on our job board, it will either say worldwide remote or remote and then have a specific country. And that usually means that the requirements are that they have to be a citizen in that country.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. Tenebrae is asking, have the recent court cases in Canada, UK, and the States had a chilling effect on advocacy employment? Like, are people too scared to come on over here? Have you had any feedback around that?
We haven't had any feedback around that
Yeah.
yet. Like, I haven't, like, there are lots of reasons why people don't want to work in the nonprofit. I don't know if I really want to say them all, but
Yeah.
like,
If anything,
they
it
are
might
just
be
like not.
it might be a rallying cry to get more people to step up. I might think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask, we've got a bunch of different questions from folks. So we'll just do like a little bit of a lightning round here. Okay, Lauren. So Becca says, I work in the legal field and cannot practice law outside of my organization. If I volunteer with an animal advocacy organization and do something other than legal work, could that still help me secure a legal position in the animal protection field in the future?
That was a very specific question.
Yeah.
I
Well, can I
don't
jump
know.
in, Lauren? And if
Yes.
you have something to add, because animal justice is we do so much legal advocacy. I'll tell you that what I think our second last lawyer probably got the leg up in the interviews because he was an active part of Animal Justice Academy. So he wasn't, he wasn't volunteering doing law with us or anyone else, but he was very present in our organization, and that really gave him a leg up. And so I think just getting in there and people knowing you, networking, figuring out how things work is a really amazing way to start. Anything you want to add, Lauren?
No, I mean, that was a perfect answer.
Okay, okay. Let me see here. How Sam is asking, how do you find more skill set specific volunteering opportunities rather than just general campaign volunteering opportunities? So yeah, there's like again, it's easy to go to, like there's lots of protests that people want you to go to, but when you're trying to find something specific to your skills.
Yes. So sometimes people do post those opportunities. Vegan Hacktivist is a great place to go to. They are kind of focused on tech, but I think that that's going to expand in the future. And yeah, I think you can also just email an organization. But on the Vegan Hacktivist, for example, we wanted to hire 4 skilled volunteers actually to help us with our social media, and we posted it on Vegan Hacktivist, and we've got like 4 amazing volunteers that are now working for us. So I do think that, yeah, the Vegan Hacktivist website is a really good idea for that. But also, if you don't see anything you like, I really think that a lot of this is just like asking an organization, like, hi, I have these skills, I would like to contribute this to you.
Yeah.
And
Just like I was saying, if you have specific skills, look at what organization might be able to use them and approach them with a really specific plan. I'd love to do 5 hours a week for you, or I'd like to work on this particular project. I'd be happy to take, to lead on this project, or I'd be happy to do research on this project, or whatever it is. Give some real specifics, or I'm open to whatever, what is needed, kind of thing. But just make it really clear what your skills are and how they can apply to the organization. Because sometimes we don't even think of it. We're like, well, how could we use that? Oh yeah, like give us some ideas. Okay, Giorgio is saying, as someone trying to get a coding web development job in animal advocacy, what steps do you recommend me to take?
Vegan Hacktivist.
Yeah, I was just going to say Vegan Hacktivist is perfect for you. Get in there now. Yeah, Kirsten's just put it in the comments, so that's amazing. Okay, Lauren, can we talk just a little bit before we wrap up about how one keeps their morale up, how someone doesn't get discouraged, because this like any career, it can be a long kind of grinding journey.
Yeah.
You get it.
So I also feel this. I actually have a couple of book recommendations that I might send people, which one is called Mindset by Carol, I think it's that Dr. Carol Dweck, and it talks a lot about like how we deal with rejection and how we should not ever see it as that. It's like that I'm not there yet. And I think some of it is just like the understanding of the fact that in these scenarios it might be a bit difficult and it might be a longer road. And I think a lot of it has to do with like having a really healthy mindset, taking care of ourselves. Like I really feel that mindfulness is very important, and I would really advocate for people to just like really be looking after themselves, but not taking it personally is so important, because it really isn't personal. It isn't like the organizations that are hiring really want to just help animals. We all want to help animals, and that's really what we're all here for. So I don't want people to think that it's specific to them. It's really just about like how do we find out like how we get to the point that we want to get to. And yeah, going to events like AVA, CARE, like last year actually, CARE was a lifesaver for me. I was starting to feel like a little bit burnt out, and I went to CARE, and I was surrounded by people, like so many people doing so many great things for animals, that it just lifted me up completely. And I think we also sometimes underestimate the fact that we can, like, being surrounded by like-minded people can really help us through this resilience as well. So, having somebody as an accountability buddy to talk to about career, like things that you've gone through, going to meetups with other vegans, like all these type of things that really just kind of help us to remember like why we're doing the things that we're doing.
Yeah, that's such great advice. And you mentioned the AVA Summit, which I think you help advise a little bit, Lauren. That happens in May, and I'm going to get Kirsten to see if she can find the link to put it in. But it's a great one. I'll be there. A lot of members of the team, but it's just a great way for people to get to know you, and you get to know them. Okay, I just a couple more questions, Lauren, that I just want to honor because they're good ones. Nelson is saying, how different is the advocacy movement in developed countries from developing countries? I find it very difficult doing animal advocacy in Uganda. I'm not giving up though, and I kindly need advice on how to approach this. So Nelson, I don't know if you're talking about animal advocacy in general, but we'll just take this as an opportunity to jump off in this idea of like lower income countries, Lauren, where there isn't a lot of money for organizations. Are there any possibilities there for jobs?
Yeah, it's very different. It's completely different, and I think that we actually want to do some a research piece on this year. So we want to like try and see how the talent bottlenecks are different between the developed countries and lower middle income countries. So hopefully that will give us some light on that. But I do know a couple of people who've taken our online course and started organizations in lower middle income countries. So they've taken the course and thought like, oh, I need to start it, and then have applied for funding and got the funding as well. So I do think that particularly in countries where there aren't a lot of organizations, like an amazing thing, if you do feel like you could take something like the slightly higher risk, could be to start an initiative there, because there might not be any other people advocating for veganism or animal advocacy whatsoever. So you could have like a huge impact if if you try to do something like that.
Thank you so much. Tenebrae is asking, what might be a role for educators, people who are trained as educators? Anything come to mind as far as what careers might be adjacent in animal advocacy, Lauren?
Yeah, so actually my co-founder was an educator. So
Mm.
yeah, I think often people just think, oh, I have this specific skill set. But he was a co-founder. We also are just bringing in a new educator to help us to develop a course specific to legal, and I think we're also interviewing someone from Animal Justice Academy. So that's also amazing, and they're very transferable skills. So understanding like how people's brains work and how to educate people, I think can also be something really transferable. So there is more of this kind of like e-learning or content design and things like that could be transferable. But I know also before my co-founder became the co-founder, he also went to a role in research, because a lot of that was like very similar skill set. So I think it's not just worth like thinking I had this role, but also what skills were you doing in that role, and are those skills like transferable to another specific thing that the animal advocacy movement needs.
And also humane educators. That's a big one too.
Yes.
Big growing movement is becoming a humane educator, and there's some top-notch programs for that as well. So, okay, one more question from Vildana. It's a little specific, and your answer may be come and have a session with me, but we'll just put it out there. For someone who has 10 years experience in graphic design, marketing, branding, leadership, project management, and even more years of various volunteering, and since I've not looked for a job in a while, do you suggest to put all that experience on my CV, or separate the experiences for individual roles? And also, are there any pointers on strengthening your application as a remote worker?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would want to know is how are you prioritizing that? So do you want to apply for all of those things, or do you want to do a career plan and prioritize which ones are the ones that come out the top? But I think if you are planning to apply for a specific role, be as specific as possible. So if it is something in graphic design, then put your graphic design stuff at the first part of your CV, and then like further down. I think being as specific as possible is the key to it, because a lot of organizations aren't hiring for someone that just has experience in everything. They're hiring for someone that has experience in the specific thing that they're hiring for. So that would be my advice. But yeah, I'm happy to talk to you more if you would like to have a one-to-one career advising session.
Perfect, Lauren. Last thing, Lauren, as we'll sort of migrate back to our gallery view, but are there any other places you would recommend folks check out as far as job boards go, to start that thing? So we've given the Animal Advocacy Careers course, the job board, any other resources that you would recommend people kind of keep their eye on?
Yeah, so I think there's also Talist, which I mentioned. It's actually German. So let me just type it in there. They do alternative protein. Sorry, I just directly sent it to you guys.
Thank you. We'll get Kirsten to look that up real quick.
Yeah.
Tallis, okay?
And then there's the Alt Protein Careers. I think also a lot of organizations have their own job board. And I think what you were saying, Kimberly, is really important, that people shouldn't just be like doing millions of jobs. I think they should look at the specific job in the organization and really see like where that fit is. So you can also look on the specific job boards of those organizations. If you're interested in like policy or other roles, I think there's usually like specific to a country, there will be like in kind of policy roles, something in Canada, I don't know what it is, and they will have those roles there. So yeah, I think those would be the top ones that I would recommend. Maybe 80,000 Hours also does some roles on farmed animal advocacy, but not as many as AAC, of course.
Amazing. Well, Lauren, I don't know if can you see everybody? Are you back to gallery view?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay. Well, we have had a ton of people here today, so many wanting to hear what you've had to say. You've been so helpful. And so AJAers, can we please give Lauren a big thank you for sharing her wisdom here today? Thank you so much. Lauren, yeah, I hope we have a whole flood of people coming to you. I hope you can handle it. But folks, I just want to say, I hope you'll join us for our next Lunchtime Live in 2 weeks, February 29th. We'll be announcing the topic soon. As long as you are part of the Academy and on the email list, you will get information about that. And it was really wonderful to see all your faces here. We have so much power here in this circle. Let's take it. And folks, if you know people in those bottleneck categories that we talked about, go tap on their door, send them a text, do whatever you can. Say, we need you, go take Animal Justice Academy, go take the Animal Advocacy Careers course, and let's get you in this movement, okay? Let's be headhunters. Let's be personal headhunters for what we need in this movement, all right? Okay, everybody, have a great rest of your week. Thank you, Lauren. Take care, everyone.
See you later.
Bye-bye.